Long before the Ford Maverick, which many people consider to be a joke of a truck since it has a unibody construction, you could once buy a Ford branded truck that was similar in size, but it actually had a body on frame.
Unlike most body on frame trucks, however, this one had an independent rear suspension, standard rear wheel drive with optional 4x4, standard with a V6 and that optional sporty V8, and even all-wheel drive.
Here's the quick backstory. The Explorer Sport Trac first showed up in 2001, and Ford basically built it for people who wanted an Explorer, but with a bed. It was one of the first crew cab lifestyle trucks before that was even considered a thing. Then in 2007, Ford rebuilt it from the ground up on the newer Explorer platform. Stronger frame, better interior, and way more refined. A comfy SUV that still did truck stuff, a mini F-150 per se, and it was weird enough that people didn't appreciate it until it was gone.
Hello everyone and welcome to Performance on Wheels. My name is Todd. My son Austin and I, we make all sorts of videos on all sorts of different cars. We make videos on everything from some of the best sport cars on the market today to even holding the titles of the #1 Maverick channel on all of YouTube. One of the things we have really been enjoying, and you have been enjoying as well, is checking out all the fun cars from the 2000 era. Some of those retro design cars that are still desirable today. Even though you guys are loving these videos, there's still 97% of you that are not hitting that subscribe button. Give this father-son team some love. Hit that subscribe button. Now let's check out the Sport Trac.
Here's what's really surprised me about the Sport Trac. Surprisingly, the Ford Maverick is a really great new truck, but this one is quite frankly a lot more of a truck than that Maverick was, and I didn't realize just how much of a truck it was. Today, let's do a full exterior-interior review of this 2009 Sport Trac, and if you're interested in purchasing it, be sure to check out the link to Appalatos down in the description below.
Through all of the production of the Explorer Sport Trac, also just known as the Sport Trac, it shared the exact same body, the exact same front clip as the Ford Explorer. That trend did continue when you get into the inside of the front seat. Same knobs, same buttons, same gauges, and we'll show you that here just in a little bit. But I do love both generations of the Sport Trac. It just has that good mid-sized truck feel, a nice presence. In any vehicle, you can throw those parking lights and fog lights on. It just gives me that extra level of appreciation.
While it does carry that Explorer heritage on the front, it did change up a bit here on the side, obviously. Ford thought that at the time that buyers were looking for something that had pickup truck capability, but were not interested in driving something as big as a pickup truck. So what they did is they took that front clip of the Explorer and pretty much the front door, and then they re-engineered it a little bit from the way back, giving it still that body on frame design that the Explorer had at the time, while essentially putting a small pickup truck bed on the back. So it features the same interior space as the Explorer while getting rid of that trunk and adding a pickup truck bed.
Now in the early 2000s, one thing that the trend that did start happening is the mid-sized trucks. Everyone started to put a crew cab on them. The S10 as an example, it just looked out of place. It didn't look designed well. Now Ford never did this with the Ranger. They never did put that crew cab on the Ranger back in the day. So this was kind of their answer as well to the other competitors, the Tacomas and the Frontiers of the world, who started to put this odd rear door on a mid-sized pickup truck.
I thought that was a perfect transition onto the interior, where the Sport Trac, I think, really shined back in 2009.
Yeah.
This thing it's really roomy in here. It's comfortable. There's some things that really surprise me on the inside. On the driver's seat, I cannot adjust the seat up and down.
You're here.
I am stuck right into this position, which is a little bit of a weird position. I'd like to go down a little bit. But what makes it even worse is my steering wheel is non-telescoping. It does not go in and out. It only, once again, goes up and down. So the ability to get yourself in a comfortable driving position in the Explorer Sport Trac is kind of interesting. I can't honestly get myself into a spot where I'm really, really happy, but this will have to do.
Now, when you take the Maverick back into the equation here, there are some very similar dimensions, and both on the exterior and the interior. Strictly from the sitting position, as Austin was mentioning, this does feel like a truck comparing it to the Maverick. The big difference there is on the driver's seat of the Maverick, you can go way up and way down. The Maverick does actually have more headroom than the Sport Trac does. And back to the dimensions, just about every dimension is within a ½ inch or so, with the exception of the length. The Sport Trac is about 6 or 7 inches longer. The interesting thing there is that the bed on the Maverick is a ½ foot bigger than the bed on the Sport Trac. So the difference is really just in bumpers and whatnot and hood, because Again, legroom is essentially the same or very similar between the two.
Now, unlike the Maverick, however, this one does not have any fancy Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. We just have ourselves some good old-fashioned knobs for heat and AC, and some big knobs for four-wheel drive, and some big radio controls, which was just the prime time in automotive engineering when it comes to ease to use. Everything in here is so easy to use. It's so obvious what each button does, unlike the Maverick back there, which you actually have to go through the screen now to even adjust your climate control. So I do think that this time in this era of vehicles, things were just simplistic and easy to use. Now, I do think some of the tech in the Maverick is cool, but there's no doubt about it. This one's easier to get in and turn on your heat.
Couple fun things to point out on the Sport Trac. Again, this is the era where there was all sorts of retro or kind of fun designs being introduced in the automotive industry, from the Chevy HHR to the SSR to the Ford Thunderbird. There's all sorts of fun vehicles. The Volkswagen Beetle comes to mind as well, that were kind of looking at designs of the past and bringing them to current day, or they're just being trendy. And this door handle, for example, look how they integrated that into the side. That's not only in the back seat, that's in the front seat as well. But sitting in the back seat here, like, I have room, but this is not much engineering when it comes to comfort. I kind of feel like I'm sitting on a park bench or something to that regard. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily comfortable back here, but it gets the job done. I still have vents to keep myself cool and hot back here, and I have a rubber floor for durability. And one of the best, most unique features of the Sport Trac that the back passenger gets to enjoy here, in all Sport Trac models, that window came down. What's up, Maverick? Where were you at on that, engineers of Ford? This is sweet. We should really bring that back.
Now that we're done with that boring interior stuff, let's get to why anyone wants to purchase one of these two vehicles in the first place. That being because they ride like SUVs but have the capability of trucks with having these bed attached to the back of them. So let's open up these two tailgates and see what the true differences are between these two. Right away, you will notice that the Maverick has a bed that is about half a foot larger than the bed over here in the Sport Trac. However, the Sport Trac has an additional storage cubby up towards the front that the Maverick does not have, and it also has this really cool engraving saying Sport Trac on it. You know, it's really interesting. The proportions and everything of the Sport Trac heavily remind me of the Hyundai Santa Cruz that we recently reviewed against the Maverick. It had a stubbier bed. It had very similar proportions on the interior when it felt like driving. I would almost say that the Hyundai Santa Cruz felt very similar to the Sport Trac when it comes to everything along the sides.
When we talk about capability, there's some interesting things here to note. First off, the Sport Trac is around 600 pounds heavier than the Maverick, just depending on how they're spec'd with the options and all-wheel drive, no all-wheel drive, all that fun stuff. When it comes to payload, we're within like 100 pounds, if even, between the two. Again, how you spec them out is going to depend on that slightly. And then when you talk about towing, the Maverick at its peak can tow 4,000 pounds. Sport Trac is right around 5,000 pounds with the V6. If you happen to get one with the V8 in the later model years, you can get all the way up to around 7,000 pounds. So you're really talking about some truck capability at that point.
I really like the exterior tie downs that they did here on the Sport Trac. They might not be the prettiest thing in the world, but they are quite functional. We're over here in the Maverick. They did these like locking, sliding bed rails, and they did a few other little things inside of here that are really, really clever. But in reality, the Maverick's bed is going to be a more capable, more useful bed than the Sport Tracs. They're both good to have, but the Maverick's got a few more tricks up its sleeves and a little bit more size. Let's talk about the powertrain. Standard engine in the Sport Trac is the 4-liter V6, and it is not the greatest engine in the world by any means. It's a dog. It's not very fast. It doesn't get very good gas mileage. It can be known for some timing chain issues, but the biggest issue with the Sport Trac is when you have this engine, it is paired to a 5-speed automatic transmission, which is also known to be quite problematic. So while starting one of these, make sure you start it on a cold start. Listen for some rattles, for some timing chain issues, because that's what they're most commonly known for. As they're starting to get older in this generation, we've also been seeing a lot of fuel pumps, been seeing a lot of water pumps. Some of the accessories on the front of the motor tend to go bad, of course, with age. But man, they don't get good gas mileage. They're not powerful. And for the transmission, when you're driving around, check for slow shifts, check for clunks, because those are quite problematic as well.
At the end of the day, though, we are still talking about anywhere from a $5,000 to $10,000 vehicle in most circumstances. So you're really looking for frequent fluid changes with both the engine as well as the transmission. And that's also the way you should keep your Sport Trac maintained. Do not listen to the manufacturer. Do not listen to your tech. Beat what everyone says as far as your intervals. And there's a lot of examples that have well over 200,000 miles out there. So with proper maintenance, they do still have a good longevity.
But what you really, really want to find is the V8 that you could find in one of these. That V8 was paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission, which is significantly more reliable. And that V8 pushed out almost, I think it's like another 80 horsepower or something, bringing it up to just under 300 horse. Gets like mid 200 torque. The thing is a lot quicker. It's a lot more reliable. It's just a great powertrain. So if you can find one of these at the V8 for a good price point, I would totally hop on it. They are really, really solid. But the thing that really is the biggest turnoff from one of these is the gas mileage. Why don't you talk about that for a minute?
The gas mileage is in the mid-teens. It just, you know, you might get a few ticks better if you really are light on the throttle or it's the correct wind direction. But at the end of the day, that's where my expectations should be. When you talk about a Maverick, you're talking mid to high 20s, even low 30s if it's the right day of the week. And that is a significant difference. However, if you're like, I'm not buying that, the gas mileage is so poor, take some things into account here. We're talking essentially about a $25,000 difference in the price gap there between a nice example $10,000 Sport Trac compared to a $35,000 Maverick. It would take you around 35 years, if I'm doing math correctly, to compensate for the $700 a year increase that you would be paying in fuel in a Sport Trac compared to the Maverick. $700 difference every year, $700 more, that is, that you would pay in fuel owning a Sport Trac compared to a Maverick. It's going to take a lot of time to add up to the difference in price.
It is important to know that some of these older vehicles might not be reliable at all times, so you should set yourself up at home with one of these lifts from Best Buy Auto Equipment from Nationwide. We did in our brand new studio, which you guys should be sure to give us a follow so you guys can check out in some of our future videos. We went with 2 4-post lifts and a 2-post lift, which work flawlessly for lifting vehicles as low as my Corvette or as big as our Chevy Suburban. So if you are doing some at-home projects and looking for the ultimate solution on lifting up some vehicles and taking on some of these projects on these older vehicles, which I find to be a lot of fun to do, be sure to check out Best Buy Auto Equipment down in the description below and use our code.
In addition to some of the mechanical concerns in regards to reliability, there are some electrical gremlins that you should be aware of. Obviously, this vehicle is far less complex than a brand new Maverick, but any little electrical gremlin can be frustrating, including when your radio does not work.
Behind the wheel of the Explorer Sport Trac, I must admit, as we accelerated to 50 there, that it is lacking power. It is not the quickest vehicle in the world by any means, but it doesn't really need to be, and if that's what you're looking for, you of course can go for that Adrenalin, which you get that V8, and you get a completely different all-wheel drive system. So rather than a 4x4, it's a true all-wheel drive system, and it's super cool looking. I love the Sport Trac Adrenalin, and if any of you guys locally have one that we could review, please send us an email at performanceonwheels111@gmail.com. I just think they are the coolest trucks, and I'd love to experience one. But behind the wheel of just your standard Sport Trac, the one that you're gonna find at pretty much any local dealership, it's way better in the winter than the Maverick is. Being an independent rear suspension makes it better than a full-size truck by all means. However, just its capability in winter with the true 4x4 system and being a dedicated rear wheel drive, this truck drives so much better than the Maverick does in snow. The Maverick is pretty good with its all-wheel drive, but this just feels like a true body-on-frame pickup truck. It just goes through any and everything. I'm even surprised at how grippy this thing is. It goes through this deep snow, and you actually have to really put some effort into it to get it to break loose. It's kind of impressive what this thing is capable of. It's just really easy to drive on a day-to-day basis. It's very comfortable. It feels quite refined for as cheap feeling as it is in the interior, and there is some actually cool features on the interior that I like, one of which is just this random little cork, this garage door opener. You put your garage door opener under this cubby, and then you push this cubby up, and that's how you open your garage door opener. So you don't actually have to press the button of your garage door opener. You just put it inside of your hidden, out of the way, and you press the cubby and it opens your garage. Kind of a random thing that they came up with, but I like it more than pressing the garage door opener, I guess, so there is that, right? But it's a good truck. It's a really comfortable place to be. It's very simplistic, and it's easy to drive. There's not really a whole lot more to say to it. It's quite honestly just boring.
Thank you guys so much for watching the video today here on Performance on Wheels. I'm not gonna lie, you guys can probably tell it was a pretty cold one today. It's pretty chilly out here in Minnesota, but that's what kind of makes these videos fun when we're comparing vehicles like this, when we're able to push them through some of this deep snow to see what they're like. The fact that this performs better than a new Maverick driving on a day-to-day basis in snow with its four-wheel drive system and some additional ground clearance, it's kind of crazy. This is a more capable vehicle than the Maverick for a quarter of the price. What are your thoughts on the Explorer Sport Trac? Would you ever sell your Maverick for one? Would you buy one over a Maverick? I'm genuinely curious if you think that price gap is worth it. Let us know down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today and watching this video. See you next time.